Good morning, everyone. I'm FA Diana Murioki Maina, the CEO of Icifa. Thank you so much for joining today's first virtual webinar for the Icifa graduates and the Icifa students. We really appreciate that you took the time to join us this morning. And I believe you have seen our theme for today's webinar, that is the growing role of the investment and finance professional. And I believe we have great experts who are going to delve into this particular subject matter, and they're going to share their stories, their experiences on how to grow careers in their respective investment fields. And I believe you have seen all our guests for today who are going to be sharing their experience. And I just want to mention their names. Today we're not going to be sharing bios because we want to hear their stories, we want to hear their backgrounds from themselves and to just share with us their experiences. So we have Felea Nyambura, who's a council member and also a director at the Andla Investment Bank. We have F.A. Anthony Muthiga, a council member as well and CEO APSA Asset Management. We have F.A. Terence Adebensa, Chief Officer, Derivatives Market, NSC PLC. And we have F.A. Patricia Kiwanuka, founder and MD, Revenue Stream Limited. We also have F.A. Winnie Odhiambo, Africa Regional Representative, Developing World Markets. F.A. Solomon Gaho, Head of Financial Reporting Unit at the National Treasury and Planning. We have F.A. Paul Kamal, Executive Director for Inaltas Limited. F.A. David Luiki, Property Investment Manager, Asset Manager. So those are the speakers of the day, but I don't want to leave out our chairman, who I'm going to introduce shortly, to just give a brief welcome note to our attendees today. Our chairman, F.A. Dr. John Ayabe, will also be giving an introduction. And last but not least, and most importantly, we also have F.A. Lazarus Kimanga, the chairman of the registration committee, who will also be delving into the matter of the Act, the regulations, the requirements for membership, and benefits of Icifa members. So we believe that this will be a very informative session, and I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome our chairman, F.A. Dr. John Ayabe, to give the introductory remarks. Welcome, Chairman.
Thank you very much, our CEO, F.A. Diana Murioki. Participants for this great virtual interaction with graduates, I want to take this opportunity to welcome all of you to this interaction, more particularly to appreciate the speakers of the day, very seasoned and experienced people in the field of investment and finance. And I am very optimistic that the graduates will get a very, very, very good share of information that may chart the way forward in their career of investment and finance. Where our CEO, F.A. Diana, has actually named on a very highlight level the people who will be speaking to the graduates today. But let me ask them to mention that quite a number of them, if not all of them, are members of Icifa, and they will be able to tell you beyond graduating with a course. I'm sure they'll share the experience of what one can do. I've interacted with quite a number of them, and I can confirm with no doubt that they are up to the task to answer all the tough questions that you may be having at the end of this session as a graduate of Icifa. Quite a number of them are practitioners in the industry, seasoned practitioners who are just gone through the profession and tested in the market, not only in Kenya, but regionally and even in the global markets. Quite a number of them are participating on this. So really, it will be a very exciting moment for somebody who may have been having a doubt on whether to stick on this career path of investment and finance. I think your answer will be given today. I wish also to appreciate the council members who have joined this morning. I've seen some few of them. I can see the chairman of the registration committee has already joined. F.A. Anthony Muthiga, who is the speaker, is also a council member. F.A. Lea Nyambura is a council member as well. And all that I can mention to the participants, the graduates, is that you have a rare opportunity this morning to listen to experts in this field. You have also an opportunity to shape the career perspectives of maybe some of your networks that you have. If you have to share with somebody who may want to challenge you that you are a CIFA, what is it in it? You will have borrowed an idea from these experts and also be able to give an authoritative comment on what needs to be done going forward in this particular industry. The beauty of investment and finance is a very dynamic area. It doesn't matter your background really. We have the top finance and investment practitioners who are engineers at the beginning. In their past degrees, they may have done engineering and moved straight away to business development and finance and investment, and it fits very well. So this is a field or a discipline that easily accommodates anybody who is serious and who is capable or who is actually determined to make a career out of it. So it will be very interesting to get to listen to the background of these great men. Some of them you will realize that they may not have started as finance and investment people. They may have started from a different career altogether. And there they are at the apex of this field in their various places of work. So I am not a keynote speaker today. Mine is just to appreciate the 100% turn-up of our speakers. 8 out of 8 shows a stamp of confidence on our institute. And we are looking forward also to participate and to listen and to hear the journey where Patricia started, for example, where Anthony, Lazarus, and David, and quite a number, including Solomon from the Treasury, and what is it is available for the graduates in the wider perspective within our global financial markets, within the arena that we are operating in. And I do believe it will be a high opener to all of us. With all those many remarks, ladies and gentlemen, as the chairman of the Institute, I'd wish to again restate that let's participate, let's focus and get some value and have a very good interaction at the end of all this. So thank you very much. And of course, over to you, CEO, for the invitation of our first speaker for this morning.
Leah Nyambura, who, as I mentioned, is a council member and the director of Uganda Investment Bank. Welcome, Efela. We believe we'll gain a lot of insights from you in terms of advancing in a career in investment banking. And kindly also feel free to share your story on how you advanced and became a director of an investment bank. Welcome, Efela.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you, everybody. Good morning. I'm happy to be part of. I am Efela Nyambura Kagumba, and a director currently at Diane Blair. And I have been in Diane Blair since May 2003. So I started immediately after, I would say after graduation from college. And I came in as an intern. So immediately after graduation, I started my master's. Luckily, I was lucky to get a scholarship back then and started immediately to do my master's. And I needed to collect data, but I knew one thing. I knew that I'm going to work in the Nairobi, back then it was Nairobi Stock Exchange. So, but I didn't know how to get there. But somehow I found myself talking to someone in Diane Blair after I did my coursework for 2 semesters. And they listened to my story. I was just bold enough and just walked and talked about my story and what I want to do, and I needed to collect data. And I also said I wouldn't mind even volunteering if that would mean that I'll get the data that I want. And that's how I stepped into Diane Blair and got myself into Diane Blair. I think the confidence in going and pursuing what you really want to achieve really helped me. And I needed to do that data and also do a questionnaire to some people within the investment banking. Then it was just stock brokerage, and collect my data, fill up my questionnaires, do the analysis for my project and my thesis, because I was doing MSc Finance, and I needed to do not just a project but a thesis. So that's how I got myself into the world of investment banking. In terms of my graduate, I did economics. I did Bachelor of Education in Business Studies and Economics. And I really loved economics, but I found it to be very what would I say? I found like it would only limit me to work like in a research area or government, and I thought finance might be more interesting. So I branched to finance when I chose to do my master's. So that's how I got. I never taught much, but I did a bit of lecturing at KU. There was a college within there that was teaching CPA, and I had done CPA 1, so I was teaching KATC by then, a subject in information technology, and a KAT out of this. So I lectured a bit there for like a year. Then I joined masters, and then I found myself at there and left. I started with research, but doing my own thesis first, and then contributing to the research work. But then, because for you to learn investment banking, you need to learn all the aspects of an investment bank. So I started with being a customer service teller. And I did that work for like a year. So you're just having clients, receiving their documents, receiving their orders, guiding them on the investments to buy, with no training, except the on-the-job training, because I found people who knew what they're doing, and they trained me. And I got very, very excited to just remain in the industry. So that's how I started. Then I moved to research in 2005. Again, no knowledge, no training. It is self-training. So you're very lucky that you're going through a training where you're being told, this is how a research report is done, this is how analysis is done, this is how you analyze like a company, this is what is dividends. Fine, I had seen it in my business studies notes, but practically I didn't understand how it makes, it helps you in making some decisions when you're doing investments. So then, of course, I said this is an animal that I need to conquer, and I needed to train myself. I'm sure Mwiviga is here. He can tell you back then, because he was in the industry, I think, or he joined a couple of years later, he will tell us. The requirements at that time, and this is why perhaps this topic is very, very relevant, because the roles of an analyst back then, a research analyst, and what the fund managers required then as the institutional investors, leave alone the individual investors who are retail investors. They just needed the information about what has the company announced and what is the dividend. Are they growing? And do we still buy? It was as simple as that. And then the market summary of every day, what has been traded, what is available, what can we buy because we have money, because we've been collecting money. And the pension industry is such a huge industry. I hope, Mwiviga, you're going to tell us the numbers, but I think it's over $1 trillion now in terms of the assets under management. So you can imagine all that money. And then with the RBA, the Retirement Benefits Authority, because they are the regulators of that industry, telling them you can invest all that money, about 70% of that money in just equities, about 30% of that in bonds, sometimes about 10% if you have to, up to 10% in private equity or fixed income. And you can imagine for $1 trillion, how much of investments you can make in a very small market, which perhaps Terence will tell us the size. So then the requirements became a bit higher, or rather the requirements changed, and the roles kept on changing, because now the foreign investors started seeing in 2003, if you can remember, it's when Kibaki joined the government, and the changes that were seen in the economy were quite encouraging, and there were many. So what happened back then, there are a few decisions that were made that encouraged a lot of investments in the market. And some of that is perhaps the major one was to lower the cash ratio for banks. And then all of a sudden, banks were hooking loans to everybody. And now everybody had, and even the banks themselves had a lot of liquidity. And there was a lot of optimism. And the companies got a lot of cash to reinvest in their productions, to expand, and also to absorb more people. And they made a lot of dividends out of the growth that the companies were seeing. And so the stocks became very, very, they became very, very attractive. And now everybody was thinking about shares and investing in shares. And also the foreigners now came into the market in a big way. So then the needs for analysts changed. And now we needed to train ourselves now how to do a full research report and how to analyze those numbers and tell people whether this is a good buy or a sell or a hold or a don't touch or a no-go to. And that's now how the roles were changed. Because the changes that come, they never announce. You just find yourself that you're in an environment where you need to also change. So adaptability becomes a very key thing when you're an analyst and when you're doing these investment decisions. And again, I was lucky to have one individual who had done those research reports as my head back then. So he guided me. But then again, for me to do modeling, I needed to teach myself. And at one point, I think I was one of the very few analysts at that time, 2006, when the IPO started coming in 2007, who had learned. And because also my institution was visionary enough to tell us that we need to learn these things, and we were prepared to serve the market. So we were able at least to service them and tell them and be able to analyze those financial statements without, again, a formal training that you've gone to a class and you can be able now to analyze these companies and determine whether they are buy or a sell. Then remember, I started as doing sales. So I was a sales pitch person in terms of, or an investment advisor in terms of advising clients. Now I changed to now becoming an analyst. But back then, we could only do like desktop analysis. And investor relations or the listed entities were not very free in giving information. So we needed to break through, to be able to get information from the managers of those companies, from the CEOs, from the people that really made the decisions on strategy or were driving the strategy of any company, so that we can know whether these people, the strategy is going to work for them and whether it is going to be a value stock for you to be able to invest in. That's how we managed to now at least be able to address the needs of the market at that time. And I worked as an analyst for quite some time, because that was 2005 until 2010, when I now shifted to investment banking. So investment banking, basically, an investment bank will have everything. It will have a brokerage, it will have, it will be dealing with investors, high net worth, or the normal retail, the masses. It will be dealing with research, deep research on the investment products that you have. And for investment banking alone, what we do mostly is now advise corporates and advise them on how to raise money or how to list. So we work mostly on the equity capital markets or debt capital markets. So you can do a corporate bond, you can raise debts other than the traditional ways of raising a debt or getting a loan or borrowing from a bank. Or you can list, or you can do a rights issue, you can do a secondary IPO, you can do a takeover to expand, you can do an acquisition or a merger to expand. So that's the role of corporate finance advisory. Or there's also the angle of where you can work for a private equity that wants to perhaps acquire a company. Either they are the buyers, you can work on the private equity side, or you can get a company that wants to get a private equity into them, and then they become the seller of the stake, or they want to issue a debt, and you can advise them from that angle. And you can do any other thing, including any project, and raise financing for them. Anyone who requires financing that is perhaps not just bank loan, but from debt providers. It can be debt development financial institutions. It can be the private equity firms. It can be other institutions that will offer debt, including perhaps venture capitalists or private equity players. And you can do any project for them, including real estate. Listings, I don't know whether I should touch a bit on that, but basically IPOs is what is perhaps most common. And for IPOs, basically what we do is we try to at least walk the journey with an issuer. whether they want to do equity or whether they want to do a debt. And you become the advisor that takes them through the entire process from the time the idea is hatched to when now you go to the market and raise the money and receive the money. But basically what you do, you can prepare, there are some regulations or criteria that you are eligible for as an issuer, and you try and check for them whether they are eligible by checking their books, by checking the management, by checking the ownership, by actually sometimes even looking at their culture, looking at the economies of the day. So you must be able to understand all those metrics. In terms of progression for the career, the best you can do for yourself is to start at the lowest. You may not perhaps start at where I started, where you are just doing an investment advisory, but if you get the opportunity, perhaps that is the best, because you're able to understand the product much easier and much better. And then you gain the confidence and the skills of presenting a theme to someone or a product to someone and convincing them to buy. And then the satisfaction is quite high when that investment make a return for the person you advised. Because all through, even in investment banking, even in what we do in corporate finance, you will be able to, you will have to be able to convince people and pitch for products or advice, and the advice has to make return, because they have to trust you that you'll be able to deliver that, and they'll be able to get their own return afterwards. So the best career path is you walk through there, but become an analyst first before you even think of becoming an investment banker. Because the skill set in research analyst for any product or investment advisory as an analyst will help you be able to at least get to the next level and go up the ladder. So for me, and how I became a director finally, is because I had the skill sets. I had done all the areas of brokerage. I had a stint even in dealing, but I didn't like the shouting, because back then we were doing market shouting. It was an open outcry, but right now they do it behind a desk. But it was not for me, because I don't like shouting so much. So, but I opted to remain in the analyst. It was more enticing, and for me, I'm a number person, so I really love doing the analysis. So thank you, Diana. I hope I've clearly told you my journey.
Thank you very much, Efela. You have very clearly. If you have any questions for Efela, please type them under the Q&A. We appreciate her great insight. So I'll go straight to Efe Anthony Muthiga, council member and also a fund manager, the CEO of ABSA Asset Management, to briefly give his story and also focus on the competencies and skills to grow in the fund management industry. Welcome, Efe Anthony.
Thanks, Diana, and good morning, colleagues and fellow Icifa members and graduates. Of course, congratulations for the training you've gone through. So maybe in the next 10 minutes, I'll try to squeeze my story to my personal story, what we look at in the fund management industry, where I've spent most of my life or my time professionally, and what professional roles, opportunities are there in the fund management industry. So, I mean, briefly, very fast, I've been in fund management for the last 20 years or so. I joined in the year 2000, and I've been there throughout, through various roles and various institutions, up to where I am now at ABSA Asset Management. Back then, I would say when I was in school, in first or second year, I had an unknown interest in investments. And I say an unknown because I did not know what it is, but I think I loved the word investments in general. In college, I studied mathematics and economics, and in later life, after my first degree, I also did a master's in finance. And I would say upon completing college immediately on my first degree, I was very sure I want to be in the investment industry. I did not know what were investment banks. I did not know who were fund managers. But anytime I saw a financial institution carrying the word investment, I got interested. It took a while for me to penetrate. It took me a year, because the first 1 year I was engaged as an intern by Citibank, and I've always tried to imagine, why did I end at Citibank? I think for only one reason, maybe two reasons. One, they were looking for interns, and the criteria was basic passing an aptitude test and slightly having some good grades. I was fortunate in my college degree, I had gotten a first class. So that was one foot in the door. Secondly, I was able to scratch through the aptitude test. And then with another two colleagues, we were given the 1 year Citibank internship program, which fortunately had 6 months in Nairobi and 6 months in London. And that was the first time for me to jump into a plane. Very excited, you can imagine, as a 21-year-old. When I finished the 1 year at Citibank, there wasn't employment. You had to stay outside until an opportunity comes, but you are aware that your first priority. But having spent 1 year in all the functions of the bank, from all the departments, including making coffee, doing photocopying, arranging papers and desks of senior colleagues who we are now very good friends, and most of them are retired, I was very sure I don't want to be a banker. As much as it looked like a very enticing career in all aspects of the financial sector. So one day I saw a bank called Investment and Mortgages, and I walked in there, and that's the Today I&M Bank. I told them, I've just left Citi as an intern. Can I get a job here in investment? And they told me, sure. I was taken through some processes. 3 months later, I was hired. The first day I was hired, I discovered they are a bank. They don't do investments. But because I was hopping around about investments a lot, I was taken to Treasury, where I spent 6 months there trying to be a currency trader, pricing term deposits. But immediately I realized this is actually not investment. This is actually a bank. So the naivety was clear. And I want everyone on the call, especially our graduates, it's okay to be naive, provided you have the passion and you know what you're looking for. You'll make a lot of misses, but one day you'll land at the right place. So after 6 months, I discovered a public organization, which we all know as the National Social Security Fund, actually has an investments department. And this is purely because I used to work around Upper Hill. So I could walk around there, see what they are doing, but I had no idea they did investments until one person told me they have an investments department. And being a government organization, it took me 6 months of dropping my CV there until one day I was told, okay, there are interviews, come. Most of people I interviewed with were teachers from all over the country, civil servants. I couldn't understand why there was so much attention to work for NSSF, apart from me, who wanted to be in investments. Of all the people who were hired back in 2000, I'm the only person who penetrated through the NSSF investment department as an investment officer. And I must admit, it was a huge discovery for me, having spent 1.5 years in 2 high-profile corporate entities in the name of Citibank and I&M. Now I was in almost a government office. The first 2-3 months, I don't have a chair, I don't have a computer, but investments are supposed to be done. I was fortunate a few months later, a very aggressive boss of NSSF joined the organization, and a few months later, the investment function of that organization became very active. And because I was hands-on, I was willing to do anything. I was everyone's messenger, everyone's tea person, everyone's go person. Unfortunately, the youngest then I learned a lot. And for the next 4 years, I grew very fast from an investment officer to an investment manager, managed to understand broad investments of the stock exchange in terms of shares, government bonds, property. And I was proud that when I joined, that organization had invested almost over 80% of their money in property. By the time I left, that had gone down to almost 50%. We were able to invest a lot of money in the stock exchange through shares, government securities. It's the only place I have ever seen the biggest check for government securities, because I used to be the messenger to deliver that application for treasury bills or treasury bonds at the central bank. I once delivered a check of 1.1 billion shillings for treasury bills. And I've never seen that kind of single amount in a check before, up to now. So for me, it was a very good experience. Then after that, I now was aware of investment institutions, or what we call the buy side in the investment industry, the fund managers. I was fortunate that time the ICA group was expanding and formalizing its fund management business. So I was hired as a fund manager. That's how they used to be called then. I was lucky. I joined together with a very experienced CEO from Southern Africa, who is very revered in the fund management industry. In fact, the Fund Management Award of Excellence is named after him, the late Paul Sigsworth. There, I was very fortunate to spend another 3 years as the senior fund manager. I ran an investment team, and we managed a lot of pension fund money, insurance money, and unit trusts. And in an essence, in fund management, that's what we call investment management activities, and we are referred to as the buy side, while the stockbrokers and investment banks are referred as the sell side, because they manufacture and provide securities which fund managers or asset managers buy. After that, I felt I'm too local, having spent almost 7 years in 2 local institutions. I got a chance to join Stanbic Investments then, I think just before the global financial crisis of 2008. And now, as a slightly senior person, I was chief investment officer. Spent another 4 years there. That business was rebranded to Stanlib in early 2000, and around 2003 I left. From there, I discovered one big thing, that it's very hard to penetrate the investment industry, especially in fund management, because fund managers in Kenya are plus 18 or 20 or so. Each employ between 15 to 30 people. So in total, they are employing less than 500 people in the financial sector. So that's a very small clique of people. And I've seen over the years the struggle for young people to penetrate. So from there, I picked the passion of being heavily involved in new fund management firms or companies. And currently, I'm very passionate about startup pension funds. So since then up to now, in the last 10 years, I've worked with 3 organizations where they have been startup fund managers or asset managers. So I went to UAP to start a fund management business. I left a year later when UAP was acquired by Old Mutual. In 2014, I went to CBA. I started the fund management business there. It's now doing very well, especially on unit trust and high net worth investment management services. And fast forward, last year, I joined ABSA again to set up a fund management business called ABSA Asset Management as the newest fund management outfit in the country. And that has been my journey. In terms of training, there are 3 prerequisites we look at in the fund management industry. First and foremost, is true passion to be in capital markets investment. I mean really, really true passion. Not just because you need a job, you are unemployed, you're from school, you are jobless. And colleagues who you're graduating, as people who talk to young people like yourselves, we can identify true passion vis-a-vis someone just looking for a job to earn a living. Because there are a lot of people earning a living through jobs, but what they are doing is not their passion. So the first thing is the passion to be in fund management, because that's important. That will make you survive the hard times when the money is not enough or when the money is not giving you the happiness you need. The passion to be in the industry. Secondly, we look at in fund management is of course now the relevant training. And the relevant training is in two formats. And all of you by now have an idea. There is an academic side and there is a professional side. The professional side, the academic side is diverse, as has been said earlier by our chairman at Icifa. It can be any analytical degree. If it is finance related, the better, but any analytical degree. From any analytical degree in finance, in accounting, in commerce, in actuarial science, in economics, in mathematics, even in engineering, any analytical degree, because fund management or investment is about numbers. So there's a need to be comfortable with numbers. So any degree which is analytical, backed by a previous, by passion for being in the industry will really, really, really help. Then
there seems to be a connection problem with Anthony, but if you could kindly wrap up.
Yeah. Sure. Then on the professional side, you need to back your academic qualifications with some professional, and that's why this program for CIFA is there. Any other finance accounting qualification will help. Your SCCA, your CPA, your CFA, all those will help. And then lastly, we look at, apart from the passion, the relevant training, is a bit of experience. It's very tough to tell a young graduate about experience. And the experience does not have to be working experience. It has to be internships during your training. Try as much as you can to get basic trainings in terms of internship. They count. Even if they are 6 months, 1 year, they count. We don't ask in fund management 10 years experience. And then lastly is about the roles within fund management. Fund managers, especially on the investment side of the business, we have a number of 4 to 5 roles. We have investment analysts, we have research analysts, we have portfolio managers, we call them investment managers. Then we have the senior roles like the chief investment officers and other senior roles. But it's an exciting industry. It's been fun for me for the last 20 years. It's a privilege. I've spent so much time in it. I think even when I retire formally from employment, I'll want to associate with it. And then the last thing is an industry which gives an opportunity to give back to society through training and information to younger colleagues and industry mates like yourselves. So thank you very much. That's my story in the fund management industry. Thank you, and back to you, Diana.
Thank you very much, FA. Anthony, that's a truly inspiring story, and thank you for creating employment. We hope you can also give internships to graduates at APSA. So thank you, FA Anthony. Next is FA Terence Adembesa, the Chief Officer Derivatives Market at NSC PLC. Kindly proceed with your presentation. And as usual, kindly our graduates type in your Q&A. Graduates and students type in your questions and the Q&A. They will be answered at the tail end.
Thank you. Thank you very much, CEO, and morning to everyone who's joining us today. My name is Terence Adembesa. I'm the Chief Derivatives Market Officer at the Nairobi Securities Exchange at the NSC. Currently doing my 10th year at the NSC. I just started my 11th year. And I'm responsible for the derivatives market business at the NSC. By way of background, I I studied at Baraton, University of Eastern Africa, Baraton, for my undergraduate, and then also did my postgraduate at USIU. I've done a lot of industry certifications and trainings. Amongst my jobs that I've worked is I interned at an IT company. When I started, I interned at a ground handling company at the airport when I was in college. And then I also interned in fund management at the United Nations office in Nairobi. And then I've joined formal employment at Cooperative Bank. Initially, during my period, the banks were taking quite a number of graduates that time, but we all started as contract employees. So my first job at the bank was in the mail room, and I pushed mail for about a month. It was a very humbling task, and then I joined the risk management department, and I worked in credit risk for a whole year before I joined the investment banking team, specifically in corporate finance. So I worked in corporate finance for about 4 or 5 years. And our main role was to advise the bank's clients and the bank. A lot of the work we did was very internal to the bank. But some of my memorable moments there was, I was an analyst on the team that restructured Meru Farmers Cooperative Society. Back then, Meru Farmers was the biggest cooperative society in Africa. And then I was team lead in a restructuring exercise for another cooperative society, Embu Farmers Cooperative, which was like the second largest cooperative society back then. Then I left Cooperative Bank and I joined Enablis. Enablis was a donor-funded entity that was supporting medium-sized enterprises, and I did corporate finance there for about 2 years before joining the NSC. So I've been at the NSC since then. Initially, I started as a manager in charge of product development. I spearled initiatives at the NSC towards introduction of new products. So the growth enterprise market segment, GEMS, I spearhead the introduction of the FTSE index series. Of course, a big one was the introduction of the bond index. We didn't have one in the market back then, and Anthony will tell you that many of the portfolios were assessing their benchmarks based on the NSE 20 index, their fixed income portfolios. And so introduction of a bond index helped to introduce another performance benchmark. I also led initiatives to establish the real estate investment trust, the exchange traded funds, and recently the derivatives market. Part of also my role is to advise the exchange and the government towards the establishment of a commodities market in Kenya. A lot of the people that I work with or interact with, but I'll speak mainly around the teams that I've worked with, that I've interacted with directly, are mainly in client and sales coverage teams in business development, then market risk, and then back office and operational teams. Across these functions, some of the key skills that I've seen across and that are key across these people is, one, that they are able to do financial modeling and analysis. They have the ability to analyze and build models to guide on trading, risk models, and budgeting. That's a key skill that they have. They have a passion in financial markets across different asset classes. So, for example, people in my team can engage you on where the short-term lending curve is at, to how oil and soya markets are fluctuating, to why trading with exotics exotic currencies, has higher spreads, and they can do stress tests, they can do back tests in order to calculate and arrive at possible what we call extreme loss provisions. The other thing that I've noticed with them that I know that they are able to do, they can speak clearly and engage with policymakers and clients. And one of the things they're able to do is educate their clients, meaning they're very knowledgeable on the products and the industry, and so they are able fast, before they even pitch a business or an idea to a client, to educate the client first. Over and above that, they're able to build relationships with their clients, and therefore they're able then to become strategic advisors to their clients, offering advice over and above what a client would need, including which doctor would best help them to fix an injury, a sports injury. So they're quite very versatile in building relationships with their clients. As you start out in the industry, or you are looking to be in the industry, my advice to you would be, a lot of the skills that I have learned, that I have, were not innate. They were learned skills. I learned on the job through my career journey. It is important that you are able to ask a lot of questions. A lot of open-ended questions. You are curious. So, the people you interact with in the industry, if you're in a networking event in the industry, ask them questions, ask them what they do, ask them, what is happening in the economic space, on the markets. And then later in the conversation, or once you've built a relationship with them, you can then ask for a job. But, a lot of the industry players like to engage around the industry. They get very passionate about that, and that's your best way to build a relationship with an industry player. Always work with a notebook, take notes, whether it's at the industry forums, or in forums like this, or when you're with a superior. Always work with a notebook, take notes, have initiative, and be creative. A lot of the senior people in the industry, like analysts or team members who are driven, who have initiative, that they are able to offer advice around a broad range of things. They're able to offer solutions around alternative, workaround solutions. A lot of the industry players have realized like that. In your initial years, I would advise that you be ready to work throughout the night. I remember in my days in corporate finance, we used to have our boss would set us deadlines for close of business, and I would negotiate for an end of day deadline. And it was very interesting because he knew I was willing to put in the hours to work into end of day, and end of the day for me meant midnight. But there have been many instances early on in my career that I had to work throughout the night. It's a well-known fact in this industry that you should be able to put in all-nighters, especially in your initial years. No one should ever lie to you that doesn't happen. In your initial years, also I'd advise that you invest in your education, in building up a network, and your work experience. Above all, I think it's important to have fun. A lot of the life experiences, while you're doing it in moderation, and in experimenting, if you're able to travel, even as simple as going to your close friends' shags, go camping, take a bus trip to Kampala or to Lamu, the Kiswahili saying kutembea kwingi ni kuona mengi. As you grow older in your career, a lot of those experiences sort of seep back into your work life. Volunteer, work for free, take leadership in industry and non-industry based staff. For example, in church, in a children's home, in a sports team, do a short stint even as a waiter. I remember when I was in campus, as I mentioned earlier, I did a 3-month stint at one of the ground handling companies at the airport, and a lot of these experiences all add up towards, and a lot of the panelists and participants here will let you know that a lot of the things that they do are build up of all these experiences, right from work or off work, during their journeys to where they are. So thank you very much, and I wish you success. One of the things that also I need to be able to advise you, because I'm seeing the transition happening in the capital markets, is that Efe Anthony mentioned that we are seeing a lot of young people struggling getting into the industry because it's not a very big industry per se. But one of the things that will definitely set you apart is that your ability and curiosity around the new products. A lot of the old hands in the industry are very savvy with equities, are very savvy with fixed income, and are still in the industry and have been in the industry for long. The generational change will come within, with people who are able to walk through, who are able to understand, who are curious about the new products, and that's where the next transition and growth for the market is. So, your curiosity around derivatives markets, around exchange traded funds, around REITs, is what would set you apart in this day and age. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Efe Terence, for summarizing the skills required so well. So we'll go straight to our next speaker. That's Efe Patricia Kiwanuka. She's the founder and MD of Revenue Stream Limited. I'm sure she's going to share great insights on how to advance in a career in investment and financial consulting. I've seen her do a lot of work in that field, advising. Talk to, is it ESA? You can tell us, Patricia. Welcome.
Well, good afternoon to all of you, and it's an exciting pleasure to be here. So my congratulations first to the 34 graduates. It's always nice to be part of a graduating class. It's time for a new start, and that's an exciting feeling. So congratulations for the hard work you've done, and certainly the Icifa paper is a great place for you to start. I'll kind of talk about my story, but I'll talk about it in 5 key points that I'd like you to use as you go into your practice or as you get into the industry. The first one is investment markets are really about trust.
In terms of like us, what we look for when we are interviewing you, the technical skills fine, because that you'll have gotten perhaps from the training that you're going through. But because you'll be analyzing financial statements, analyzing situations, analyzing the economy, different companies will come to you with different business models. And especially now that COVID now has taught us that things will have to be looked at differently. There are so many businesses that are going to change the business model. So if you are familiar with, and Terence has put it very well, with the new changes, the new products, because the people who are there are already in the old school and perhaps may not be as fast as you who are tech savvy from perhaps a very young age, and it is easier for you to be able to at least move with the trends in the tech world. If you can do AI, if you can do data analytics, because that is where the world is going. So if you prepare yourself, not just, I know this is quite an investment, and it is good that you've been able to achieve this, and for those who are still there, it's going to be great for you to have that, because it's now a requirement in the industry for you to have those skills, especially Icifa. And depending on where you're going to get employed, some of them is even statutory and regulatory. For Icifa, perhaps is statutory. There is another one, even CMA, the authority that runs the investment banks and the fund managers, it's authoritatively statutory for you. If you have that, you'll have an edge. But in terms of now what you need to consider in terms of skill set, if I'm doing an interview for you or I'm interviewing you, I'll require you to do a model. That is the interview. You do a model, you deliver a model, you deliver a decision or an opinion. It may be right, it may be wrong, but I would prefer that it is right for perhaps even a listed company or an unlisted company, because I can give you data and tell you, just give me a model for that and tell me whether this is a good investment to go forward or not. Because the world there is very competitive. You have to stand out. And once you do that model, you have to come and present and pitch to me. So you have to have very good communication skills. You have to have very good fluent English, and you have to know how to do a PowerPoint presentation from day one. Otherwise, I won't consider you. And that is our entry level as Diane Blair, because if you're an analyst, because everybody comes in as an analyst. It doesn't matter whether you're going to be serving clients at the front there. Even today, if I was to interview perhaps a receptionist, I would still want them to be like an analyst, at least to be able to understand the products that you have, because the products have grown. We started with just knowing equities before, and then we moved to bonds, but now we have even derivatives. We have ETFs, we have unit trusts, we have REITs. So you have to be able to analyze those things and know that where they are going. So that is at least perhaps what I wanted to say, and I didn't manage to say.
Okay, thanks, Efela. We can try to answer the questions as we wait for Patricia so that you can save time under the Q&A. A question to Anthony Withiga. Someone is asking about how they can change careers to the investment management space. They have a Icifa graduate, BSc, MBA, passionate about investment and portfolio management. Just very briefly, as we wait for Patricia.
Yeah, thanks for that question. Diana, that sounds like someone wants to enter, so he's not transitioning. Entry is, I normally call it the shop floor. The basic entry is at internship level. There is no fund manager or asset management institution in Kenya which will hire you from school as a substantive role. They will hire you as an entry role, which can either be an internship role or can be a junior analyst. And by an analyst means can be an investment analyst or a research analyst. And then secondly, if you are transitioning from another employment, anything, whether you're a banker, you're a teacher, whatever you're doing, but you have the relevant training academically, for you to transition into fund management, unfortunately, again, you have to come at entry level. I've seen a lot of those nowadays where people have worked for 3 to 5 years, want to change the industry, but unfortunately, you have to come at an entry level. But once you come at an entry level, arriving at the top, I tell all my young colleagues, in 10 years, you should hit the top of fund management. You should. You don't need 15 or 20 years. It's possible to come from intern to chief executive in 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Efe Anthony. So I think I will go straight to Winnie. Are you ready? We can go to your presentation as we wait for Efe Patricia. Efe Winnie Odhiambo. She's going to give us her experience in private equity. She has extensive experience in private equity. And she's also the Africa Regional Representative developing world markets. Maybe I should also mention Winnie. We were classmates, bachelors. So welcome,
Yes.
Efe Winnie.
Thank you very much, Diana. Really pleased to be here this morning. And good morning, graduates. Good morning, fellow panelists. I see a lot of familiar faces, having worked with some of the panelists in my previous life. So I see myself as an all-round financial professional, because when I started out, I began my career in banking. So I started in the clearing operations at Cooperative Bank of Kenya, and then moved into asset management operations. So my role was posting, ensuring that the transactions were, well reflected in the system, reconciling these with the bank accounts, and then developed interest to move into actual fund management. So I did join, a portfolio management team in 2006 at Cooperative Bank. The unit specifically is Corp Trust Investment Services. And at that point in time, I met with one Terence Adembesa, who's I think on the call, as he was working on the consulting side of the business. But together we were one unit called the Merchant and Investment Banking Unit. So I worked in Corp Trust for about 6 years. And when I was there, developed a lot of interest for private equity, because I always wondered why the regulator was very, and our regulator at the time was RBA, still is, for the pension industry. So I always wondered why the regulator was very fixed in terms of private equity. And those days they called them unquoted equities. So we had an exposure of about 5% ceiling, and I really wanted to learn more about this. And so as a result, I wanted to pivot and transition into the space. Unfortunately, I didn't have the experience, so I had to start, again. Basically, I had to reset my career and start again. So I joined Acumen, which is a social impact fund. And at that point in time, my role was an associate. So I joined as an associate and then was promoted to senior associate within a year. And so my role was to originate deals, which is sourcing for them, and then preparing financial models, structuring them, and proposing this to be presented to the credit committee or investment committee, depending on which instrument we were using. So at that point in time, I learned a lot about impact investing, but really still wanted to transition into main private equity. And in 2014, I got an opportunity to do so, and I moved to Africinvest, which is one of the largest private equity players in the region. And I was in charge of East Africa, particularly looking at private debt and helping to finance SMEs and really, providing best-in-class ways of doing business in preparation for them to grow and scale in the region. So that was really exciting. I did that for 3 years and rose the ranks. And in 2017, got an opportunity to be a partner at IDEV International, which was a San Francisco-based investment advisory firm, but was operating in Kenya. And unfortunately, our offices were in Dusit. So we got caught up with the terrorist attack. So I also learned a thing or two about disaster management and recovery, having lost our CEO, unfortunately. So at that point in time, it was a time for me to reflect and think about what I want to do next. And, having undergone the trauma and, having undergone a terrorist attack, there was a lot that was going on in my mind. But in between that time, I served in a couple of boards in various capacity, and this helped me meet other professionals globally. And hence, I was able to meet my current managing director, who's based in the US. So I also serve in the Renewable Energy and Efficiency Partnerships Board, which is based in Vienna in UNIDO. So I help them review opportunities for funding in the renewable energy space. So that's my role on the board. Also, I recently got appointed into MasterCard Investment Committee. So I help to identify also opportunities that would suit their investment criteria. So in 2017, I was really excited about joining IDEV, and because we were helping businesses grow and scale, but also we were taking a stake, an equity stake in the businesses. And this was fantastic because it was a different way of doing, investments, advisory, and at the same time owning a stake in the business. So with that in mind, I always wanted to be like an entrepreneur, but obviously it was not for me. I think I came to the humble acceptance that I'll be an investment professional for the rest of my life. And so partly what I've been doing to give back is not only working with companies who require, of course, this support, but also like what we're doing today, like speaking to graduates, speaking to upcoming professionals in the industry, speaking to entrepreneurs who are looking for advice. And part of what I did at IDEV was running a podcast. So I actually had I think 5 sessions where we showcased companies that we've raised capital for, but also other companies that had received private equity funding. And then walking the audience through the journey of the entrepreneur, helping them identify areas and challenges that investors would look for before they put in money in your business. So those are some of the things I do to give back to entrepreneurs, to the community, because if it's not your path, it's not your path. So fast forward to today, I work for a US-based private equity and private debt fund. Developing World Markets is based in New York and in Connecticut. And so I pretty much shuttle between continents, covering Africa and Middle East. So those are my areas of coverage. We focus on financial institutions. So we only work with financial institutions by providing private debt or private equity into these institutions. Our assets under management globally are about $600 million. In this region, Africa, Middle East, I manage about 50 million. So this is me in a nutshell. Academically, I started my degree in USIU, but I didn't finish. So sometimes, in life, it's not perfect. You start and you don't finish. And then, so I transferred my units to University of Nairobi, where I met with Diana. She mentioned to you, I was her classmate. So we were classmates in undergraduate, and we pretty much studied together. We were, very close in terms of how we shared and, shared ideas, worked together, collaborated, because we were pretty much in the same industry. So I unlike maybe normal graduates, I went through my career while I was working. So I went to school when I was working, and part of it was also because of my personal situation. I was a new mom, so I also had to balance mothering, school, and work at the same time. So my career progression has not been the traditional one where you finish and then you start looking for a job. I actually was on the job. I had a diploma before and then started working as a trainee, and then rose the ranks. So sometimes your path is not the same path that everyone takes, but you eventually get there if you're committed and if you really, have the passion and the commitment to achieve what you want to achieve. So I studied, my bachelor's degree was in economics. So I did economics in my bachelor's degree, and then my master's was in finance and investment. Both of these I obtained from the University of Nairobi. And then I felt I needed to really have exposure in terms of international qualifications. So I went to Harvard Business School and was certified in private equity and venture capital. It was quite a great experience. I met one of the best people, in terms of professionally, and it was a very good cohort. We keep in touch to date. And a funny story is that one of the MDs I met in the class actually supported me a lot during the terrorist attack. So when I went to bury my boss in Texas, he actually picked me from the airport, showed me around. So you find like sometimes when you go for these courses, you not only are there to network, you actually make friends. So that for me has been a personal experience that I've had, and really keeping in touch with people from all over the world. So I would encourage you to consider these professional courses as well. They really open up opportunities and really give you good networks globally. And so out of also those networks, I do provide a mentoring support to Thrive Ventures. So Thrive Ventures is based in San Francisco, and one of my former classmates from Harvard runs it. And so what I do, I've been mentoring startups to actually obtain venture capital funding. So I recently mentored a company in Australia, which for me was very humbling, but at the same time, I got to learn about investments in that part of the world. And then Thrive Africa ran a challenge where we were trying to encourage African enterprises and startups to, to join the challenge and to apply for funding. So those are some of the things that I found myself doing outside of my day-to-day career. And it's really because of the networks that I've been able to build over the years. And so that is my academic background in a nutshell. And it's really been rewarding. It's hard when you have to work and go to school, and you also have to run your family. It's difficult, but also it's encouraging to see that it can be done. So for me, that is pretty much my personal story in a nutshell. But what I wanted to share with you today is some statistics, which I find very interesting in our space. I don't know if I'm able to share my screen. Let me see.
Yes, you can, but maybe in 2 minutes.
Yeah, sure. I just want to show you a snapshot of what we look at in this region in terms of investment. I don't know if you can see my screen, I hope so. If you look at the Africa Venture Capital Industry Survey, it indicates that 82% of limited partners plan to increase their allocation to African private equities in the next 3 years. Due to their attractive risk and return profile, the performance has been quite good. Also, they feel there's good impact in terms of jobs created, environmental, impact on what some of the SMEs are doing, and also for diversification purposes. So I think this is very encouraging. If you look at the countries where the limited partners are forcing the general partners to invest in, you can see Kenya is one of them. And this is very encouraging because private equity as an industry, we employ even less than asset management, which is where I started out from. So it's a very niche market, very specific kind of skill set required. You have to do due diligence, you have to be able to structure deals, and typically you need to be able to also manage relationships between the portfolio companies, your investors, your team. So it's a lot of moving parts, but really rewarding as a career. And I can tell you that because covering Africa, I can definitely say that Kenya is one of the most attractive countries. And this is reflected with how capital is moving, how capital is flowing from other parts of the world into this region. So you can see Nigeria is considered the second most attractive, Egypt and Ethiopia kind of rank the same, Ghana and Ivory Coast. So I just picked the top 5. Other attractive countries are like Morocco, South Africa, Tanzania, Uganda, and Zambia. But why I'm sharing this slide is typically just to show you that in Kenya, we have a lot of investor interest, a lot of foreign direct investments coming in, and it's very encouraging for anyone considering this industry as a career. And so how do you get in? I think there's no way out. You just have to keep trying, and you have to, network. I would encourage you to attend East Africa Venture Capital Association events, follow them on Twitter. They usually, have very good training courses as well. So that's pretty much the industry association that you can easily tap into for networks and opportunities. And of course, you have to start as an analyst and rise. For me, I came in the middle because I had experience from the investment side. So I think everyone's journey is unique. I just thought it's good to share mine today and to encourage you and say that it is possible. Anything is possible if you put your mind and your heart to it, and if you have a passion. So that's it for me for today. And happy to take any questions after this. Thank you.
Thank you, Efewini. Such a great profile, and you have summarized it so well in the private equity career. And I believe we will also be inviting you to conduct some trainings on our private equity valuation very soon at Icifa. So thank you, Winnie. Questions, we kindly request if you can stay in. We'll go through the Q&A session at the tail end. So if you have any questions for Winnie, feel free to type in. We'll proceed. We have Patricia is back. Patricia, you can join in again.
Sincere apologies for that, but I guess it's God's way of also reminding me that being in the consulting and entrepreneur space, surprises always happen. So I've just seen a message saying how Safaricom Wi-Fi is being being technically something is happening. So I'm not IT literate, and that's why I said my first point for you is really be authentic. Investment markets are built on trust. The more people trust you, the better it is for you. I started off my career as a receptionist over 18 years ago, and I ended up at the age of 40 as a group managing director of UAP Mutual Asset Management. 3 years later today, if you ask me what I'm doing or where do you find me, I'm actually an intern at Gertrude's Hospital and at Melchizedek Hospital, doing a master's in counseling psychology. And the reason for that is really my focus of my business and my consulting business is really behavior finance around retail. How do you empower individuals to become financially independent? How do you get to enjoy your life and retire at 40, if not earlier? Second thing I want to mention is you really have to offer value to businesses. Your employer does not owe you any favors. A lot of times, especially as management, a lot of people would come and do degrees or do certain papers and felt that they were entitled to promotions. That isn't the case. The business doesn't owe you any favors. You need to make the business believe that you add value. So if there's one thing I can encourage you as a graduate right now, as you're looking at your Icifa paper, is think about what is the value that you bring to the business. If your focus is always on how much money you will make in the business, then it's very unlikely you'll be able to climb some of the paths that you've had being discussed. And it's very true, the paths are never straight. I've seen a question on the group talking about what are the opportunities in Uganda. A few years ago, this was with AIG Investments, we made a decision to try and set up the business in Uganda. And there was a discussion on whether any one of us wanted to take the opportunity to go into Uganda. And I thought, why not? I'll do it. And for 6 months, and then for close to a year after that, I spent significant amount of time setting up a business in Uganda. It was very different, and I think Anthony has talked about it. Setting up a business is very different. You may have the technical investment skill, but what comes into play is really your business development, negotiation, willpower, and just staying the ground, staying the course. That skill is now what's playing into favor right now as I look at me setting up my own business, which is Revenue Stream, 3 years later. I can successfully say that 3 years into running, I think I've come through what they call the valley of death. I would never have predicted COVID. If this conversation was happening in March this year or April, I was sitting in my mother's house in Embu and wondering whether my business would actually sustain itself. We're now in December. I've had to do certain changes to my business, which I'm sure other companies have had to do. I've had to cut down staff members. I've had to downsize in terms of office costs. But at the same time, I've also had to innovate around going online and learning how to do things differently. That flexibility is extremely important and a skill that you will need as an investment advisor or even as a consultant. The more flexible you are, you can't have one-size-fits-all solutions for everybody. So you need to really be able to take time to listen, to understand what is being asked of you, and to use that skill, to use your technical knowledge to find solutions that work for people. The third point I really want to talk about is you must grow and climb with care. Please remember that you will always need people. Over the last 3 years, I think in 80% of the cases confirm that I haven't got business referrals from the C-suite, which is where I ended up my professional career at. Most of the business referrals I've had and most of the big accounts that I've handled from consulting have come from people who were actually very junior to me. And I'm not talking about small consulting jobs. I'm talking of jobs even at the level of the World Bank consulting. That was a referral by someone who was an investment analyst who had actually left Old Mutual and moved into another assignment. And he remembered my name. Be very careful as you grow your career, as you interact with your team and your people. Always remember that you will need people. The more honest you are with people, you may have to take tough decisions, but just as you start now, please remember the people in your class, the people you've interacted with, and I'd like Winnie also mentioned this, is those are the people that will add value to you. My position right now is your social network really equals your net worth. If you don't have a good social network, your net value outside of employment can be very low. The fourth point I want to talk about is always remember you're human. And I think Terry talked about this. Take time to have fun. Take time to take care of yourself. Take time to do what you enjoy. Take time to challenge yourself. One of the things I did at the end of the COVID lockdown was I actually climbed Mount Kenya. Now, anyone who knows me knows that's a feat that clearly I don't look like I'm nice and trim and well fit. But it's a human experience. Take time to do the things that you need to do and meet people outside of the investment environment. As you grow your network, you will find that over time, a lot of the knowledge you need, even as an analyst, to understand a business, and now that businesses are morphing very quickly, is people that you will meet outside of the circle of investments. So yes, even as you're networking within investments, take time to network outside of the investment profession and make friends in those areas. I'm currently sitting as a council member at USIU Africa. If anyone had asked me if I'd go into education at any point, I'd have been very surprised. But at the same time, I'm working with someone like Terry at the Nairobi Securities Exchange as a director. And all these things are all about taking opportunities and adding value. It's not about who you know, it's about growing your social network over time. You must give back to society. That is really my point number 5. Wherever you are at any time in your professional life, you must give back to society. I grew up in a rural village town, not quite the village, in Embu. For the last 15 years, we have been able to run a children's school with my mother in the slum school. And I think over the years, currently, we have approximately 40 children. Despite COVID, that school has run. Now, why is that important when I'm talking to you about starting your career? If you don't take time to connect with the community and the people around you, you may end up being very successful, but not having any roots that you can go back to. For me, COVID was an extremely useful experience because I ended up spending 5 months in Embu town. And the last time I think I'd been there for more than a week, I might have been easily in my first year of campus. So finally, as you as a graduation class, my words for you is always pause for perspective. You will never make every decision right, but you can take time to make the right decision or the best decision with the circumstances you have. Try and get a mentor. Try and discuss your ideas with people. I like the questions I'm seeing in the group because it's through such interactions that you will enable yourself to be able to understand what is broader than your own horizon. In terms of my professional journey and in terms of my qualification, just tying the circle around, as I've said, I'm currently finishing a master's in counseling psychology. I'm a CFA charter holder. I have a Bachelor of Science in Actuarial Science and an MBA in Finance. And all these things, if you had asked me at the beginning, did I ever see my career path charting out the way it is right now? I would have said no. However, I'm a strong believer that the people that you work with are able to see the skills that you have. I've started off as a salesperson. I started off as an actuarial student, which is technical back office. And then from there, one of my bosses thought I could do well in business development. I got the opportunity to do business development in Uganda. As a result of business development, someone identified organization skills in me. And therefore, I went into management. So my career has not been a straight line. I wish I could say I started off as a very excited financial analyst, but that's not really my story. But my story is I'm in the financial market, I enjoy it, and at this point in time, I'll be combining that with psychology and look forward to being a financial therapist in this market. And with that, I'm very happy to take questions at the very end. Thank you very much, and again, my apologies for the technical hitch.
Thank you very much, Patricia, for that very precise presentation. And you've covered some things that we don't really think about, more like life skills. Thank you very much, Patricia. We appreciate your input. As usual, questions will be tackled at the end of this at the end of the last speaker. So I'll quickly introduce our next speaker. That's F.A. Paul Kamal, founder of Inaltas, is going to discuss about how to advance a career in transaction advisory. F.A. Paul Kamal, kindly, briefly in 10 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks a lot, Diana, for allowing me to be in this panel and this discussion. What do I say is that it's quite a privilege for all of us to be in this kind of discussions. In 2 ways. One, the people who are starting career, they get a chance to hear from the people who have been in the industry. And then it becomes kind of a good feedback to them and to all of us on what can we do to further the profession. My name is Paul Kamal, as has been well put in. I'm one of the partners of a transaction advisory firm. So what do we do? We we help or we walk the journey with the investors or the owners of the business in activities such as mergers and acquisitions, in activities that when they're doing, they want to do valuation for whichever reasons. So we also get people who come for us to ask for something on business model, that if we do A or we do B or we do C, what are the possible outcomes that the business can have? So also we are involved in capital raising. So some people say they want to look for money and they want somebody to walk the journey with them. Also, we are always involved in aspects such as restructuring. What I've learned in this field is that one thing, and maybe that is a skill set that I would like to talk to the graduates. It is a very dynamic field. There are no two assignments that look similar. Like even if today, like yesterday in the news, KCB bought a bank in 2 different countries. I'm sure the transaction advisors in that will tell you that when they were managing that transaction or when they were advising KCB, that what they learned with a bank in one bank and the bank in another country is that there were totally 2 different sets of companies. And that's one skill set, and that's one thing I would just like to tell the graduates, that you are a unique person, you are a unique individual. Your experiences, what you have gone through, what you have learned, how you mix in experiences is a totally different. You are unique and totally different for you. So in any situation, in any chance, all you need to do is always maximize on the advantages that you have. What I learned early on in the career, of which I'll come back later on what it has been, is that always life is a matter of experiences. Either the experiences that you have gone through or experiences that the other people have gone through. So as one of the speakers said earlier, learn to travel more, listen to people more, read books more. Like my life has been shaped when I was in campus. At that time, I was 20 years old. Someone came and placed a book in me. It was about the rise and fall of Morgan Stanley, and another one about Lehman Brothers. At that time is when it was everything about investment banking. And when I was seated there, it intrigued me. I became curious. So that's how I found myself in a lot of spaces in terms of investment and transaction advisory. Okay, although I'll come back to it again. Then the other thing is that you need to communicate effectively. Our interviews in our company, FLA has said about the give model and all that. So for us, what we do is that we come and we give you a topic. And we tell you, go in and write anything about, let's say, the economy of Kenya or the Kenya shillings. And we allow you to go and do research, do whatever you want to do, but just come and present to us. The people who are able to communicate effectively, they always become some of the people we consider highly. Why is it so? It's because there are a lot of set of information outside there. There are so many, even you talk about economies of Kenya, there are so many aspects you can talk about. But the ability to get that information, digest nicely, present it, and be relevant to the point, always sets you aside. Another one is attention to details. You'll find that we use a lot of numbers, and one number can mean anything, and it can mean a lot. So the ability to be attentive to the details, the ability to be able to be key, and to not leave anything to chance, and whatever comes along the way, you can explain it, makes a lot of difference. Then being a team player. A team player means that you can live with other people. You are not only intelligent, but you are also emotionally intelligent. You can be able to live with people. You can be able to save people, because all assignment, wherever you meet, as one of the previous speakers said, it's about trust. It's about living with people. It's about people believing in you. It's about people seeing the competence that you have. It's about being that you can live with the X, Y, Z,
because all of a sudden this thing is it's a colleague, it's based on what your colleague can do is what you can do in a team setup. Then the other one is just diligent. You just have to work hard. You just have to work hard. There is this quote that we used to be told when in high school and university that there are many things that have killed people, but our hard work maybe have the fewest casualties that you can ever find in life. When you're starting, sometimes the work you're given is quite tedious, maybe in your eyes, but ability to put in a lot of hours makes you want to develop what you call thick skin, in terms of you can be able to deliver a lot, and you learn a lot. What happens is that when you're joining a profession, the learning curve must be so high. The ability to learn in such a short span of time makes a lot of difference. And it's the people who learn a lot, it's the people who are able to learn a lot, it's the people who are able to adopt a lot, are able to progress in career. It's not uncommon. Well, the government says you need to work 8 to 5, but it's not uncommon. And you ask people who have been in the profession, not only in investment, but in other doctors, lawyers, lawyers, any profession, that in their formative years, they put in a lot of hours. It's not uncommon to hear 14, 15 hours in office, maybe consistently, but it eases as you maybe sometimes to go up, but that's not a guarantee. But the ability to work and to put in long hours matters a lot. And then another thing that you need to do is just to understand that life, especially in capitalist sector, where like our profession is based on, is quite competitive. So every day you are asking yourself, what is this thing that I'm doing that is better? What's this thing that I'm doing that's setting me aside? And what is this thing that I'm doing that is making me to add value to the business, to my client, or is making me to add value to the people that I'm working for? If you add value, definitely you'll always find yourself, you are going up, you're going up in career, you are being given more demanding job. And sometimes it used to be seen that the people who work hard, they are being given more work. And some people think that that is a punishment, but far from it. Is that the work flows, the work, the remuneration, the resources always flows to the people who can be trusted. It's something in the biblical that the people who are trusted with a little, more is added to them. So if you get a job as an analyst, if you get a job as a reception, if you get a job at the lowest it can be, all I can ask is do the best that it can ever be. One of our senior analysts started as a reception. In terms of hiring ourselves, we adopted that unless you're a consultant, of where we are giving you a specific assignment, all the full-time jobs, we always pick them from internship. So we get internship, we give assignment. Maybe within 3 months or 6 months, you just need to prove yourself. And we have let some people go. We have hired as many, but it's the people who we think that they buy into the culture, they buy into the delivery of the assignment, and there are people who at least have passion into the industry. Someone said about passion. What matters a lot in these traditions and into the profession is that the work must not only be done, but the work must be seen that you are doing it from your heart, okay? And it always means, if myself, let's say some of the assignment that we have done like now currently we have been able to model businesses for governments, we have been able to model businesses for banks, we have been able to model businesses and to do valuations in especially the English-speaking side of Africa. So yeah, matters in valuation, modeling, and mergers and acquisition. But what I would say, and maybe what I've learned, and that is what I can tell the graduates, is that the world, how it's tailored, is that you have to fight for your space. Okay. Someone said you should not feel entitled, but that's true. But whatever you get your hands to do it, just do it so excellent, because it's just a matter of time. Maybe 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, it's the one that will open your doors. Don't despise the days of humble beginnings. I started as an account clerk at a village market, that is a shopping mall. Then I have been working in treasury in terms of the forex, money market, but that's in the treasury of Kenya Tea Development Agencies. And I've been involved in clients who have been bought out, who have been sold out. And though therein I got the experience of transaction advisory. So it may not be maybe my journey in terms of the transaction advisory has been from working in corporates that have had those kind of experiences. But what I'll say is whatever you get into your hands into, please do it so excellently. It may be now, I've seen somebody asking, how can I move from banking to the fund management? Yes, there's a path, but what you have at the moment, just do it so perfectly, because therein, that's why you'll meet people, that's why you'll meet opportunities. And life is never a straight line. Life is just a series of opportunities that comes along. And I think I quote again the Bible that says, time and chance is given to everyone, and there's the people who says the opportunity that are able to progress. In terms of my qualifications, I'm a Icifa graduate, I'm a CPA, I have a master's in finance, and my bachelor's degree is in accounting and finance. I know the next questions that may be asked is how has it been? This is a space that is quite dynamic, and I think I said it again. No two clients are similar. So the ability to think outside the box, where the box has never been defined, but we are always told to think outside the box. But the ability to think outside that box is what sets people aside in the advisory. It's a long journey. You may find you get a mandate maybe to work with a client in the transaction. Sometimes it takes 18 months, 24 months, or longer than that. But the ability to maintain such kind of transactions, the moment I'll just pause at that, and then take transactions. I will take any question towards on anything to do with transaction at the end of the presentations.
Okay, thanks FA Paul for the inspiring speech. Very quickly, FA David Luigi, you can begin. FA David Luigi is a property investment manager at Genafrica Asset Managers. He's going to share his career in real estate investment. FA David.
Thank you, Diana. You can hear me clearly? Okay, thank you. So I'll also try and just speak louder. So asanteni sana for this gracious opportunity, the chairman, my fellow panelists, and to the Icifa graduates. I'll take 10 minutes to infuse the little I have learned down to those who are coming behind us. And I'll use a very simple structure where as I comment on each of them, I will also just articulate what my story has been. So I am currently the Chief Executive Officer of a new creation. I think this is something which I had just shared with FA Diana after we had already organized for this. So we created at Genafrica a new investment product known as a property fund. For those who are aware of real estate investment products, I'm pretty sure you've been following the story of REITs and also what Terry at the NSC has been able to articulate with respect to the various products. So the Botian Property Fund, I will talk about it in another forum, but it is a creation which, just like my previous panelists have mentioned, it's a creation which is a poster child for what you can do when you are passionate about what you want to achieve. And I have been a property investment manager at Gen Africa since 2014. I'll explain during my talk how I got there. I previously was a research and projects consultant with Tysons Limited, one of the larger real estate firms in Kenya. And then prior to that, I used to do property and investment, property and portfolio management for a company known as NW Realite. So to start, as I chart my path around those three jobs I have had so far, and now the fourth, I can simply say that there are three things which determine the path that you will take in your professional life. First is your interest. And I believe Madam Patricia, as she's going into therapy, I also am a very ardent reader of philosophy and psychology. She will probably tell you that she may have found out that interest is not what you choose. It is hard-coded in you when you're born, based on your personality traits and character. Yes, while it is rigid, it can be honed because there is nature and there is nurture. There is what was inbuilt in you when you were born, and there is what was socialized in you as you are brought up. So while it is difficult, you can actually cultivate interest or desire in one area. Once you've cultivated that interest, you need to get competent. Don't be that proverbial gentleman who, because the only tool he has in his toolbox is a hammer, he sees every problem as a nail. We will discuss, and I've listened to the previous panelists articulating the various competencies for their fields. Then, even in a marriage, you can know how to do it, but if you're not compatible, it won't work. So I can summarize that as opposed to just knowing and wanting to do something, you need to actually have the capability of doing it. That is the only way that you will be able to do it well. If you only have the desire and the competence without the capability, you'll probably never do it, and if you do it, you will always be the people who never beat the deadlines. If you have the competence and the capacity, but no interest, you will always have excuses upon excuses upon excuses. And finally, if you have the interest, you don't develop the skills, but you do have the time, and your father pays the fees and you go to the school, but you go and joke, and these skills Icifa have given you through passing the paper, you don't apply them well. You'll have the interest, no competence, but the capacity, you will do it, but you will do it poorly. So, interest. I started as a property manager, where I would probably say I was a caretaker. I studied land economics in school, and it was a matter of chance. JAB, Joint Admissions Board, in our years, in the 90s, you just pick whatever course. Course 1, course 2, course 3, course 4. So I cannot say that I planned to be a land economist. I planned to be an engineer. I had put my second choice to be architect, but because the weighted cluster marks and all those complicated calculations did not work for me, I landed on my third course, which was land economics. So I came to discover what land economics was when I was in university. So while I landed in it, I already knew that some elements of it I was not interested in. What do I mean by interested in? So the first action each of you have to do, I'll give you 3 points in this 10-minute speech that I have. The first action which each of you needs to do is find out what areas interest you. So in real estate, there are 3 areas. I've listened to the other speakers, and they have told you the various areas. Which ones interest you? And we heard that because one of our speakers, I think it was the issue of shouting on the stock brokerage floor, that was not of interest to her, and she moved. So it is something hard-coded in you. If you're not interested in numbers, you can't be in analysis. If you're not interested in routine, you can't be in operations. If you are not a sociable person, you can't be in transactions. You can't be an estate agent, you can't do deal structuring, you can't do brokerage. So your first action is go out there and figure out what your passion is. Once you've known what your passion is, get it right. The Bible says, since I had a few people quoting the Bible, forgive those who don't quite follow that script. I do. So allow me to quote from the Bible. My people perish for the lack of knowledge. So go and figure it out. Insofar as I am interested in analysis, go and get the CFA for real estate analysis. We call it the Chartered Alternative Investment Analyst course. There are others, it's not the only one. That's your job. Action number 2, as a graduate, research what are the right skill sets for your area of interest. In Kenya here, I am also a professional member of the Institute of Surveyors of Kenya. So at the global level, the institute that would help us understand the best practice with respect to real estate operations would be the RICS, Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. These ones, their membership is strictly limited to those who have done the various undergraduate degrees relevant to such career pathways. But their knowledge is not monopolized by them. You can just be a member of this at an associate level, at an affiliate level. You're after the knowledge, not the bragging rights that you're a member of the institution, so that you know the competencies required on real estate operations or whatever area you want, so that you have the right tools. And also in transactions, you can go and research what are the right competencies to generate or build for yourself. Then finally is the matter of compatibility. I'll again switch to the Bible. God of all knowledge was walking on the road to Emmaus with some 2 strangers who didn't quite recognize him. And notwithstanding that God knows everything, there's one thing he doesn't know. And he asked those 2 guys, how can 2 walk together unless they are agreed? So compatibility is that serious. So if your compatibility does not align with what you are currently doing, either get out, find something that aligns to your personality and character and, I dare say, interest, or figure out these weaknesses and strengths that you have, or aptitude, and play on your strengths, recognize your weaknesses and build them. So that if critical thinking is not your forte, don't get into analysis. But if you really are interested in analysis, and you could have that aptitude for critical and analytical thinking, then go and learn how to, 1, get interested in that, and 2, build the competencies in that. And you can go through the rest. So when I was a property manager at NW Realite, I quickly realized that I hate the routine, thoroughly so. So within 3 months of my first job, I was done. I was not doing this anymore. I am not a routine guy. I am not a conservative guy. I am not into those boring, repetitive tasks. But if you're going into real estate operations, that is what you need. So I realized that if I am to stay here, I need to build that ability to be structured, meticulous, methodical, assertive, attention to detail, because you've seen our offices right now, I'm sitting within the 14 Riverside Park. The property manager in charge of this place was my classmate. I can tell you that right now he's extremely thorough on even the most mundane of security lapses, because in property operations, something that you refuse to pay attention to on detail, like security, a catastrophe like what happened even at Westgate can come through, or even a fire. And if you are the sociable, extroverted types, you are always interested in learning and growing, then get into deal structuring and real estate transactions, and make sure that your legal and mastery of language is also quite high, because those are the kind of personality traits that would be compatible with such a profession. And this is for real estate. You can use the same framework for all the others that my panelists have also mentioned. So, in summary, know what you're interested in, get good at it, and know yourself. Make sure that you have the traits, both personality-wise and character, to be able to do them well, and then make sure that you don't live in the clouds. It's good to know, better to do. So act. I have given you 3 actions. Research what your interest is, research what the competencies required are for that interest, research yourself or figure yourself out, and know what are the personality traits you need to be able to pursue your interests. There is a framework. God is a God of order, and so when he built this world, he built some realities that there is a time for everything, and therefore if you do not know, my people perish for the lack of knowledge. So in real estate, and something which I think we can expand to other fields, we have what we call the iron triangle, or the project management triangle. You can either have something good, fast, or cheap. Choose 2. You cannot have all 3. Those are the limitations of our world. And then, based on the quality, on how good you want to be, like Anthony said, within 10 years you can rise to the ranks, then you will be able to achieve what you want to get. So using my story, when I got bored with NW Realite just being like a caretaker, I switched jobs. I decided, let me go to Tyson's, and I told them very clearly, I know you have all 3 departments: estate agency, valuation, and property management. I am not interested in property management. I am not interested in estate agency. I'm an introvert, so don't send me to sell to people properties. I am a liberal. I'm not conservative. I hate routine, so don't put me in property management. Get me into valuations. And they agreed. When I got into valuations, shortly, 1 year later, I was bored again. So I went to the board and told them, okay, I'm bored, but I'm not jumping ship. Give me the chance to start a new department. What department? Projects and research. Why? All of you guys are doing valuations. And you remember those were the Kibaki years where every Tom, Dick, and Harry had decided to become a developer, but they were not doing this thing we call feasibility studies. So the board looked at me, and one of the gentlemen looked at me and said, you know, I was hired by Tyson's in 1976. When were you born? 1982. Wow. And you're coming here to tell me how to do business? I told him, sir, no, I'm just trying to ask for an opportunity to fill a gap that I think is in the market. Nobody is doing feasibility studies. So I knew the competencies that were required. I knew I'm more interested in numbers and analysis, and I started. Then when I started that department, my biggest client is my current employer. Fahima, the former CIO at Genesis, now Gen Africa, would always send me all their property-related shenanigans with respect to, do we buy this property? How do we select from these properties? How do we analyze this property? And after 3 hours of that, they got tired and they said, okay, come over. Why don't we stop paying Tyrusons? Why don't we just pay you and you do it for us from in-house? When I arrived here, I looked at what they were doing and I was like, nah, this won't work. We need to do something different. So I was not a conservative. I love pushing the bar. And that has culminated after 6 years in this new creation that we are calling the Batian Property Fund. Both the RBA and CMA have just given us regulator approval, and I will be coming to the market now to show the investors that, by the way, in real estate, there is a new way that we can do this. So what is the relevance of that story? You need to be able to know what your current situation analysis is. I am just a graduate. This is what is in my hand. Remember the story of Moses and the burning bush? God asked him, what is in your hand? Use what is in your hand. Come up with your goals. How do you come up with your goals? A simple structure is there are 2 types of goals, numerical and non-numerical, which are just actions or tasks. And there are 2 types of goals by way of target time of completion. Some are finite, there is a start and stop date, and some are infinite. For the rest of your days, you need to always be pursuing that goal, but you will never catch it. So, when you know your current situation and you know where you want to be, then come up with a strategy. What is the strategy? Figure out what type of goal that is. Is it a project? Is it an average? Is it a target? Is it a habit? Or is it a combination of all 4? Come up with your path, and the sky can only be the limit. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for that very engaging presentation and the sermonettes. We've learned a lot. So straight over to Efe Solomon Ngahu, our last speaker, then we'll wrap up after him. We still have Efe Lazarus who'll give a brief presentation. Efe Solomon, I don't know if you can hear me. You can start off briefly, just giving your experience in the public sector. Efe Solomon is the head of financial reporting unit at the National Treasury. Efe Solomon, unfortunately, your connection is not clear.
I think now I'm good to go.
We still can't hear Efe Solomon.
Can you hear me well?
It's breaking.
My end shows that I'm well connected.
We still can't hear you. Maybe in the meantime, as he sorts it out, I'll quickly request Efe Lazarus Kimanga to just give a brief presentation about the Investment and Financial Analyst Act and the functions of Icifa and the Registration Committee.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you, fellow panelists, for the good job that you have done. I'm very excited because sitting where I am, listening to what you have presented to our graduates, I'm really pleased. And I'm sure that our graduates are happy. And we really thank you. And these are the sort of sessions, Diana, would like to have as many as possible, because then our graduates are able to tell the world that they are entering into. And congrats, the graduates, it's good that you have completed your professional exams and now you are ready to do your professional work. We really thank you that you have had the chance to attend this session, because it's very important, because you will gain something from out of it, particularly listening to professionals from the industry. We're really happy, and my presentation will be a bit different because I am actually here as chair to receive you into the institute. Unlike the others who are there from the industry, who have told you what is it you expect out there. And obviously, as you go to the field, you need to be a member of our institute. And my name, as Diana said, is F.A. Lazarus Kimanga. I will not take a lot of time because I've been allocated a very short time, and I will not take the history, the route that the presenters have already done. But briefly, other than being a member of Icifa, where I am the chair of registration committee, I am also a member of ISPAC. I'm actually a fellow for the Institute of Certified Public Accountants, and also a company secretary by profession also. I am a member of ICS. I'm a fellow of the Institute of Certified Secretaries. I will not go into that so much, but just briefly, I used to be a general manager of East Africa RE, and right now I'm company secretary of WICA RE, and I have had a lot of experience in the insurance industry. And as you know, the insurance industry, there are lots of investments, huge investments. And I have had lots of experience in finance, investments, common secretarial administration. So what I have been doing is very, very relevant to what I am doing at the moment at the Institute in terms of investments. I'm very conversant, but more so with regard to the insurance sector. Now, I will go straight to tell you a few things, but before then, I need to tell you that we have a council which looks after the institute, and that council has got 11 members. We have the chair who is with us. For those who came late, is F.A. Dr. John Ayabe. And all these members you see who have been presenting their members, that's why you see they are using FA. Some of you may not even be knowing why do we have FA prefix. It's because they are financial. It's because they are financial analysts. And as it has already been mentioned, there are some here who are members of that council. Anthony is a member. And we have got a total of 11 members, and they are represented on the board, on the council, and that is Treasury, CMA, CASNEP, and NSE. It is good for you to understand from the council then before we move on to the registration side. Now, what I need to mention is that the activities of the Institute are guided by the Investment and Financial Analyst Act, number 13 of 2015. What does that mean? It means that the Institute was established in 2015, to be precise, on the 8th of December, which is now 5 years. And we're very pleased with the growth that we have had of the Institute. And that's why we like as many graduates to come on board as possible. And I'll be touching a few things as we go by, but that is the initial thing. But I need to mention that there are no more than two types of memberships. But what is very relevant to you is that now that you have qualified, you can join as a full member. To be a full member, you need to have qualified, having safer qualification, and you need at least 3 years. And if you become a full member, you are registered, admitted, then you will start using FA prefix. Now, that's why all those presenters, when you see them FA, it means that they are more than 3 years. Then you have, alternatively, If you do not have the 3 years experience, you can join as an associate member. And with associate membership, you do not require any experience. All you need to do is that you must have been qualified professionally. Now, going forward, what happened is that to become a practicing member, because I see even there is somebody who wants to know how do you start practicing. First, you must be a full member of the institute. If you are an associate member, you are not allowed at all to practice until you become a full member. You can always transit. If you start with the associate membership, you can transit to full membership. But as we said, although you require 3 years minimum to be a full member, to practice, you must have a minimum of 4 years of relevant experience in order for you to be allowed to practice. And you will need then make an application and be given a practicing certificate. But that's not enough, because you must remain very relevant. You must have a sort of experience that you require, and also to make sure that you remain in good standing. If you do not remain in good standing, there are rules. How do you become a member in good standing? You must make sure that you attend to your CBD requirements. You must make sure that you pay your, your annual subscriptions, and also when you renew your practice certificate, when you renew your subscriptions at the beginning of each year, you are then given a license. That license is the one which will show that you are actually having a valid license in order to practice. You may have a practicing certificate, but you have not renewed the subscriptions, and therefore you do not have an annual license, and therefore you will not be allowed to practice for that year. Now, the next thing that we need to mention, Diana, the next thing we need to make sure is that there are certain benefits that members get. What are they that you require? One is that there are opportunities to have continuous professional development, and you get them, in fact, at lower rates than those who are not members. So if you are going to attend some program and you are a member, and you are going together with somebody else who is not a member, your rates are much lower. Number two is that we have had some international connections with other institutes which are globally recognized, and therefore, like CISI, what will happen is that there are certain ones they even provide you without paying if you are a member, and we normally give those names to them. So we have got global recognition with the Association of Chartered Institute of International Analysts, and also CSI, which is the Chartered Investments for Securities and Investment, and also others. But those were very close, and we're working also even with CFA very closely, and trying to see how we work together in the future. And notification of opportunities in the financial sector, the Secretariat always circulates opportunities to members so that those who are interested can always apply, because you cannot just merely rely on newspapers. So we normally pick those and circulate, and those who are interested, they always they have the opportunity in order to apply. Also, we have got networking opportunities and mentorship for members, and also for those who may join and they are not having any experience. We are making arrangements for internships, you must have had some questions going to some of the panelists. That will you try and see if you can give us some opportunities? Yes, those are some of the things that we are working to make sure that even those senior members of our profession, they give those opportunities. There are always very good opportunities for those who join the institute, but when you are out there, it becomes difficult. Number two is that you may have an opportunity in order to demonstrate that you are somebody who is valuable, in the sense that employers right now, many of them, the route they are taking because of the integrity issues we have, they are being asked whether you belong to a professional body. And if you are a good member, and therefore good member in good standing with that institute, they sometimes even write to the institute. And when you get that, then I think it gives you an added advantage. So do not think that you are losing anything. If anything, it will add. So if you go 2 persons for interviews, and you'll be surprised, some of the presenters today, they might ask you, to what, okay, we can see you have what Icifa, or do you belong to the institute? Then you say no. When did you finish your exams? 5 years ago. You know, they won't understand. So if there is somebody else who has got same qualification as yourself, you will find that you will just lose that opportunity, and it will be given to the other person, because they will not understand why you do not want to subscribe to the professional standards which have been set by the institute. And also, you will get an opportunity to be commended if you are doing a good job. We are now starting, we have been in existence, as I said, more than 5 years. If you've been doing very good work and you have exceeded 5 years, obviously you may have a commendation, and there's a commendation certificate when you are applying, and you show that actually your professional colleagues value you. There is another advantage. And of course, the institute will be going all through to fellowships for those who may achieve what has been set as the requirements. Now, there are very many areas of practice. Those have been identified. I want to call these ones out, but then if there is something that you are missing, please use this opportunity to add it. We have alternative investments analysis, we have asset management, we have corporate finance, we have derivatives analysis, we have derivative trading, we have financial services specialism, and we have equity investments, the areas of practice. So specialists will do that. And we have quite a number, and we have got areas like financial advisory, financial planning, all these. But what we are saying is that if there is an area here, that you see which you think should be struck off, or you think there is an area you want to be added, please feel free and have it included, because we are sending this, taking it forward, it might go to Parliament. So I am very pleased that at least we have had this chance, that we are able to talk to each other. And please feel free, get all of the institute and see the best way. And there are times that because of COVID-19, we encourage members to come on board, because special rates were being given because of the times that we are undergoing. The circumstances have been very bad, and we are saying that please, members, those who wish to become members, please do so and get hold of the secretariat. I am not sure whether that opportunity is still lasting, but if it is, please take advantage of it, because I think so. I remember that it is ending end of December, the 1st of December. So take that opportunity, because the rates have been lowered so much in order to enable you to join because of the COVID circumstances. I was very pleased to just mention to hear about certain areas you should not be avoiding. It has been mentioned CSR activities are very important. Please, some areas when they see you have never been involved in CSR activities, it becomes a major problem. And also, please be members be able to be asking questions. We know of situations where some people, and we have taken sometimes some people in employment, a person comes, does not ask anything for fear that they will be showing how they do not know much. But eventually what happens is that if you do not, you'll be found not to have learned 3 months ago. There is nothing the organization will have learned from you, and they will say that now we need to part ways. So our members, we are encouraging them to be asking questions when they have been employed if they have not understood. You will not be seen as a fool. You will actually be seen as a wise person. And integrity, this institute takes integrity very, very seriously, and therefore values. So that is what I wanted to mention. And I am sure that you will get to know that employers are looking at people who actually will add value, not just the purpose, but value to their organizations. God bless you, and we look forward to applications being sent to Diana, and we receive you with 2 hands. And thank you very much, the presenters, once more again, for the value that you have added to this presentation, because our members, our graduates have been able to listen to you, to get to know how the industry works. And also adding on that is what you are expected, of course, as a professional. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lazarus, for that, for the great presentation. If Solomon, you're back, you can wrap up and we'll go briefly to the Q&A. I can see some hands are raised.
Thank you very much. I hope now I'm audible. I'm sorry, it was technological challenges. My name is F.A. Solomon Ngahu from National Treasury, Head of Financial Reporting Unit. I want to go to the histories as Senior F.A. Kamal have just mentioned. One is to congratulate all the graduates who are joining this institute. I want to assure you that you are joining the right place. Based on what our past experiences and my colleagues in the panel, you will note that we are starting from very far. So most of us have started from very humble background. And in this case, I'm trying to pass a message that you are expected first to humble yourself from whatever job you are doing and accept to learn. Giving my example, I started as an audit trainee, a job that was boring. This led me to undertake Icifa, and therefore I have been growing with the Icifa and the CPA, but my heart has always been in part of finance. This is because I always find different challenges and what my heart desires. One of our panelists have just stated that where your heart is where you perform better. This does not mean that you hate your current job, but what I am trying to mean is try to move with the desires of your career growth. So in government, where does this investment come in? In government, we have various areas in which investment and finance is applied. They include matters of pension, portfolio and portfolio management, government investments. This, most people think that government is all about treasury bills and treasury bonds. There are other analyses. We also have cash management. You all know about the issues to do with public debt. Currently, we have started consolidating our financial statements. Initially, it was just done for accountability, but it was found that these financial statements required add value. And as a result, we have been consolidating all the financial statements for public sector entities, and they are classified into 4. One is state corporations, SAGAs, and public funds. We also have ministries, departments, and agencies, which are 75 in number. We have consolidated fund services and receivers of revenue. They are around 14 with 4 consolidated fund services. We have county governments and county entities. County governments, here we classify them as both county assemblies and executive, totaling to 94. So somebody would ask, why do we do this? As financial specialists, you cannot do any financial analysis without consolidated statement or without analyzing financial statements. So through this, we can be able to tell which institutions are doing well, what is the area of weakness within the entire public sector. In the recent past, you have had the debate of excess wage bill. So how do we go getting this and how do we monitor the same? It is done through the financial analysis. So which tools do we apply? We usually apply simple ratio analysis. Ratio analysis, some people would think that ratio analysis is not very important, but these are the key issues we apply. We also use Z-score. This normally is applied in parastatus. In some of these state corporations to know whether they are still viable or they are headed to, I don't want to call it disaster, but they are headed in the wrong direction. This helps the government to plan well in advance. So because of time, allow me to state that when you join this institute, as Efe Kemanga have just stated, you have an atmosphere or an environment through which you can ask questions. We have the forums, we have our website is always open, and I have been seeing free webinars or free workshops where members are free to ask questions. So it is my humble request that you keep on asking. No one is accused of asking 100 questions because you are not asking to test anybody, you are asking for the purposes of knowledge. So where or what do we require to, or how do we need to change? We need to have a change of mind and a change of character. And that is to say, we need to have change of our mindset. How do we go changing from what we have been imagining? One, we need to learn to take challenges. You cannot remain in a comfort zone assuming that you will remain or you will just excel. You must be able to take a challenge, work extra hours, as well as giving more time to the job, but not compromising on other areas. Number 2, you must do a lot of research. There are so many people who do a lot of research, both in academia and as practitioners. This means you require to read theories, you need to read some journals, you need to read some theses, and also investment books. I have seen quite a number of our students failing to get some basic information from which is readily available under the CMA website, Control of Budget, National Treasury, among others. So it is now your challenge now to change from the books to practical now. Now you are, as a graduate, you need to apply the theoretical view of things to practicality of the same. We also need to, as graduates, as you join this field, you also need to seek somebody to train you as a mentor. You need somebody to hold your hand because you may not know. Through reading, sometimes reading may not give you full practice. You need somebody to mentor you, to guide you. And this also means we need to take interest in writing in our own journals. We have magazines. that we need our members to contribute. And these members are include but not limited to registered members, but also the graduates. We are all sharing the knowledge. We are all working towards achieving a common goal. Lastly, one of our presenters stated that he started as an accountant or as a clerk. I want to assure you that power, you don't just get power. Power is grabbed. How do we grab it? We are not doing it politically. We are grabbing it by showing that we can be able to manage this. This simply means if you are taken as an intern or whatever level of job, or as an intern or an entry level within any given institution, you must prove you can be able to perform given the chance. How do you prove this? You must prove this by contributing to the debate, working as a team player, and asking as many questions as possible where you don't understand, rather than assuming you understand yet you mess up. So on my academic qualifications, I hold a CPA, I also hold a Icifa. I am a graduate in finance. That is my undergraduate, an MBA is in the area of finance. I also hold public financial management masters. I am also about to graduate my PhD University of Jomo Kenyatta. So, because my time has just been limited, I would return back the mic to F.A. Diana and thank her for allowing me to come back, though I was challenged by technology. Thank you, Diana, and fellow members.
Thank you very much, F.A. Solomon. Wow, we have surely gained a lot. We appreciate the input, all that we have received, the insights from all our speakers. We can allow Zablon Osano. He's asking, how can one start small practically, individually, with one's little capital and into investing in our local market, especially in Forex?
I guess I can make a quick comment on that. Well, I won't speak directly about Forex, but what I'd say is if you have capital you want to put into something, my advice if you're a client was to take the time to understand what you're getting into. For every person who's made Forex gains or gains on that Forex market, there are people who have lost significantly. So if this is not your area of expertise, I suggest spend some time to understand the market better, and also take time to understand like what the Mansa X and the rest of the people on Forex are doing before you just go into this purely for an investment opportunity. However, if it's money you're willing to risk to learn, then it's something I'd suggest you can go ahead and do. I don't know if Terence has anything to say, but that's my experience from my clients is more people have lost than gained, especially doing it on their own. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, I think Patricia, you captured it well. The thing with online Forex is that it's a zero-sum game, as Patricia puts it. Your losses are somebody else's gains. So it takes quite a bit of time. From research, I think it takes close to 1.5 years before you can build the expertise to be able to, to get those, professional levels that you can then say that you're not taking losses on trades. So one of the key things is to invest fast in learning. Don't put too much of your cash into the thing. Invest fast in learning, and then gradually build up your positions as you grow. Of course, as they say, there's always a fool in the market. You don't want to be that fool. You don't want to be that fool. So spend much more of your initial months learning the ropes. I'm seeing many of those firms have a lot of webinars educating clients. So spend a bit of time on that. YouTube has a lot of lessons. Spend time on that. but also importantly is, always put your trades through entities that have been licensed by the CMA. For there's some element of safety and considerations that the regulator has put before they've allowed players like that to be operating in this market. And so it's important that you're careful around the apps and the service providers who are operating in this market. Thank you very much.
Add on to what Terence has said, mine is nothing much. Mine is just to guide, as Terence has said, learn. So I was asking myself the same question all through my career. Whoever is asking that question, I believe my screen is clear or it's casting. Look for this book, Prestige Bookshop, Wabera Street, Nairobi City Center, or if you're not in Nairobi, Amazon. Get the soft copy. Buy this book and read it. It is a very simple read. It is less than 100 pages. It will answer that question of yours in line with what Terence has said. Learn. Make sure you know what exactly you're doing. This book will exactly help you answer that question. Thank you.
Octavia Washira's question, she's asking, contributing knowledge on the publications. The Icifa normally has a quarterly journal, that is the Icifa Investment Review, where our members are free to provide any publications, any articles that are featured in the journal. So I hope that clarifies with regard to contributing knowledge on the publication. So there are normally themes to every journal, so we circulate that to our members. And our members are allowed to submit articles that are in line with themes, of course, themes that are relevant to the investment and finance industry. When we have the opportunities for networking, we have a whole CPD calendar. That is where we have opportunities for networking. They can meet at CPD events. Currently, this year has been affected by COVID, but there's still networking opportunities virtually. And the other way of networking, we also plan to launch workshops next year where we'll involve the graduates, the associates, people who don't have extensive experience in investment to participate in these workshops, and where maybe some good people with good skills can be identified for internship opportunities. So that's also an area of networking. So I hope that covers Octavia. I can see a question here from Joseph Mwanthi. I'll quickly hand this to Patricia. He's asking about being enlightened on the procedure prerequisite on starting a consultancy. And also, do we need to apply for the internship voluntary trainings, the various financial institutions?
Okay, to answer the second part first, yes, it is important for you to apply for internship and voluntary trainings if you can. I think also, Withiga talked about this. The more internship or work hands-on experience you have, the better for you. Internship is a great time to learn. And as I said, even on my psychology side, I'm having to do internship in 2 institutions as we speak. On the other one, the first part of the question was asking about setting up a business. So the guidance I'll give is, if you're looking directly at just consultancy services, that is something you can do as an individual, and there's opportunities for you as an individual person, both either in training or developing or offering your services or your experience to colleagues in the market. If you do decide to go the business way, as I said, my experience is the first 3 years can be really tricky. Year 1, you tend to get support from people who know you. Year 2 is really a tough year, because most of the people are observing to see if you're really serious about staying in business or coming back into employment. And then year 3, you kind of start getting off the curve. And that's when you can really test whether your business is working. So the one thing that I've learned, both from starting a business and being in the consulting world, is do it when you're very clear how much capital you can put in. And number 2, your business is not a child. So if it's not working the way you envisaged at the beginning, please be very flexible to adjust your business. But go through the motions of setting it up don't make it a side hustle. I think that's a word I can use. If you're going to set up a business, set it up as a standalone business, do your accounts, make it a legitimate employer. If you do it that way, you will gain faster traction than if you do it as a side hustle. That would be my advice for now, Diana. Hopefully I answer that question well.
Thank you, Patricia. I believe it's well answered. So I believe we've wrapped up the session because of time. We really apologize for going beyond time. Thanks, Efe David. We appreciate your time. We appreciate that you engaged throughout the session. A lot has been learned. We will share whatever slides that were presented to you for the sake of knowledge and for gaining information. So thank you all for your time once again. I've been your host, Efe Diana Muriuki Maina, the CEO of Icifa.